Hi, Dionne. I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be speaking to you today. Um, Maybe you could just begin with a brief introduction to this film. So people who don't know anything about it, what can they expect if they watch Pretty Red Dress?
It's a film that's based primarily around a character called Travis, who's a black man. He has sort of had a bit of a troubled life. He's at a point where he's trying to kind of make everything a bit better. And the film opens with him coming out of prison and meeting his longtime partner, Candice, played by Alexandra Burke. And in short, he's been hiding the fact that he likes to dress up in women's clothes. And yeah, the story is sort of centered around this idea that he's at a point in his life where it's going to come out. So that's what it's about, but it's also a kind of musical as well. And it's very much based around a red dress, and also has like Tina Turner songs in it and all sorts going on. So yeah, it's a lot of things.
And of course, it's not your first film, but it is your first feature. So
yeah.
I just wonder how the short films that you've made before this one perhaps provided some kind of experiment in kind of your style of filmmaking and the tone and feel, but then also kind of what the genesis of this project was in terms of the actual storyline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was saying like there is like a through line with We Love Moses, which was the short. I think if you watch that and you watch this, you can see that it's like a continuation of that, and hopefully something that's like elevated a little bit. But yeah, it's quite similar in the way that I'm trying to use all the different elements of the medium. Like music is so important in We Love Moses, in terms of the storytelling, and then there's obviously the questions that We Love Moses asks about sexuality and about gender, and I think that is kind of continued in Pretty Red Dress, and in a way that I hope is more sort of guided by emotion rather than sort of contrived kind of political viewpoints. So yeah, I think that it's a like really nice leap off from We Love Moses.
And do you think, having done those short films, does that kind of mean you can jump in a way, more confidently when you come to making a feature film? And what maybe were some of the things you learned through that process?
Through the process of making the feature or through making the shorts?
Having the shorts and then what you could bring to making your first feature.
I think the short is prepared you to kind of, everyone who makes a short, you just don't have a lot of money. I mean, some people do, but we didn't have a lot of money to work with. We had like a kind of good amount, but yeah, it was not enough. And it was trying to aim really, really high. And, trying to be ambitious for what it was. And I think that is definitely what we've tried to do with the feature film. But yeah, nothing really prepares you for like the intensity of a feature. I think there's a big difference. Obviously, the short was 4 days and a lot of prep, and then Pretty Red Dress was a lot of prep as well. I think that was something I carried on, was like putting a lot of preparation and planning into it, because I knew that I didn't have, a lot of time. I think we had like 24, 25 days to shoot this. So yeah, that I learned a lot of lessons from that in terms of being like kind of pacing and having to work under a lot of pressure. But yeah, it's just very, very intense doing a feature. And I think that once you've done it, that helps you to go on to the next feature. But the short is, it gives you a little grind, but nowhere near as much.
And to come to your incredible cast, which obviously was going to be very pivotal to the success of the film, kind of these three different characters, this kind of trio of the parents and the child. Maybe we can start with Travis, because I suppose in some ways maybe it wasn't going to be the easiest role to cast, because it is quite, let's say, a new version of the black male that we've seen on our screens, but there's kind of this double edge to him, in the sense that he is this kind of maybe more stereotypical kind of tough guy. He's been in prison, but then there's this whole other side to him that gets revealed through the film. So what was the casting process like, particularly starting with Travis?
Yeah, Travis was definitely like the hardest one, I think, to cast, for that reason, that he had to have the tough side, the real strong kind of masculine side, and then also be able to slip into that very sort of sensitive feminine side of himself. And yeah, a lot of actors had one or the other and weren't combining as well. Then we had some actors that were really good at that, but were just afraid to kind of go any further. It is definitely a role which is very vulnerable for actors. There's still a lot of like stigma in the community. So I think yeah, it's not really surprising, but yeah, I still couldn't help by being surprised like how many actors would not want to do it just for those reasons, you know, being given the lead role in a feature. But yeah, we had a lot of amazing actors on it, a lot of really good people, and it was just very, very difficult. And it got to like 2 weeks before we were about to shoot, and there was like a lot of pressure. We're like, okay, we're not going to find anyone. And then Nate kind of walked in, and just, it was like, yeah, it was amazing. It was like magic. And he was just able to do those two sides so well, and really be able to kind of very fluidly tap into both. And yeah, I just think he has so much intelligence and sensitivity that, yeah, it was just, I couldn't believe it when he came in. It was like, yeah, just from nowhere, basically. But yeah, he's brilliant. And then, did you want me to talk about Alex as well?
Yeah, and I was going to come on to her character, which I just think is really interesting, because that kind of real life seems to parallel a bit her character, because of course we all saw her rise to fame through X Factor, and she did go on to perform in the West End. So she was kind of, I guess, channeling some of her real life experience into this character, and of course her amazing voice and ability to be a performer. But it's also not an easy role, and there's definitely a tough side to her as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's exactly it. And it was amazing because at first, when we were first doing the film, Alex came up, and I think she wasn't available. And then we had we sort of were going to shoot, and then there was like all the COVID stuff happening, so we had to circle back, and she was then available. And that was absolutely amazing. She's just, yeah, she's kind of had that story. She understands that world, and she is who I guess Candice kind of wants to be. You know, she would have had that luck, and you know, wants to make it. And it was just, she was just perfect, I think, because you know, she has a very much a star quality, also her personality, her energy. She has a lot of herself in that character. But also she was able to tap into the toughness as well, and the, you know, definitely like the masculine side of things as well. It was just really fun. It was like an absolute joy working with her. I think she's really fearless, and I think all three of the actors, the lead cast are, but I think, yeah, she just went into it and just went for things.
And I think maybe some people might have some preconceptions about the idea of people who've been kind of on these contests or used to kind of doing these big kind of like stage performances, where of course something like this is a much more stripped back drama, and in terms of, you know, having to have the acting chops to be able to put it off, and she knocks it out of the park. So you even, really, you know, yourself, you know, like, you know, this is real proof of her abilities in a way.
Yeah, I think it's always really exciting as well when you have an actor on that you just wouldn't expect to do something, or a performer or a singer or something like that. I think, yeah, most people really have a character or can do a load of different characters in them. They just don't always get that chance. And like you said, they get boxed into things. And for me, it was just really exciting to see, you know, to kind of put her there, because it really opens a lot of things up.
And I guess finally then coming to Tamilola as Kanisha, you know, really must be difficult for young actors to kind of step into these roles, and quite intense, and she really pulls that off, and also the dynamic between the three of them really works.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't difficult for Temi because she's the most smooth, cool person in the world. She's just like, from her first audition, like, it's really hard for me to remember a time where like I kind of had to like get her to change something, because she just does everything straight away, and she's so natural and does so much with so little. And to have that like in a kid who just isn't self-conscious and isn't aware of the camera, I just think is absolutely amazing. She's so brilliant. And I think she was like an amazing piece to the whole family, and like just had great chemistry with them as well.
And then coming to kind of the look and feel of the film, I mean, of course, it's very London set, but it's maybe not quite the full-on urban, really gritty London that we've seen in lots of series and other films lately. So I just wonder, you know, what influences maybe do you take in sort of generally in the look and feel of the film, but particularly your portrayal of this family drama, you know, very much set in London?
Well, I was sort of I sort of live in South East London, but I love like South West, and I love like Norwood and Streatham and those areas. I think they just look beautiful. And they're very much you know, they're kind of like very close to bricks and everything, have like strong Black communities there and very mixed communities, different all different types of people there. And they don't really get shown very much. So I thought that would be really interesting. I love the color green, and I love how much green is in those areas. So that was like a really important, the color green was really important part to the film, as well as like red and things like that. So it really just kind of perfectly fitted the mood and the palette of the film to kind of use those areas. And in terms of like the look and feel, like the aim was I was really inspired by like a lot of like 60s and 70s cinema. I'm just like inspired by that in general. And I wanted like the film to feel like it was like spontaneous and raw, but was at the same time like there was a lot of kind of thinking behind it. And so yeah, I say Alice doesn't live here anymore for the camera work on that, and things like Saturday Night Fever. And yeah, there's a London film called Babylon, which is a really underrated film, an amazing 1979 film, which was like a huge influence as well. And yeah, just like trying to like films that there wasn't necessarily one overarching film, although Saturday Night Fever, I think, mixes being quite raw, but also being quite heightened really well. But yeah, I just think it was like a bunch of different things, like a blend. And then hopefully like the characters as well, they just putting characters kind of pulled from different experiences in my life and putting it all into them. So yeah, it's a real mix.
And of course, kind of the inclusion of Tina Turner's music. So it seems to like run through it as well. And what was kind of, does that hold a strong significance for you, and it felt like it fit with the film?
Definitely, yeah. I'm like a big fan of like her, like Phil Spector and the stuff that she did with Ike. But of course, like her 80s stuff is incredible as well. But like I guess like the Candice character, it felt like the right direction to go more towards like the 60s, 70s stuff. But yeah, she was just such a massive influence. And then, you know, she sort of helped influence the red dress. You know, it's sort of based on a lot of like the designs that she wore. And yeah, just like her in general is like symbolically, you know, just sort of fierce femininity, but also sort of taking masculinity and being able to put that into performance and into a style. I think it's really incredible the way she like uses her voice. I think she just like works as a complete symbol for the film. And when I was writing it, I was listening to a lot of like Ike and Tina Turner stuff, and it just, yeah, kept on getting a bigger and bigger role in there.
And were there any parts of it you found particularly difficult to film? And I guess maybe like some of the intimate scenes, you know, they do feel very raw, and maybe kind of we don't always see sort of those awkward moments that do happen behind closed doors in relationships. You know, not everything is sort of, you know, soft lighting and beautiful and easy things, you know, and you see kind of the tussle in both the characters, both within themselves and against each other, in terms of those masculine and feminine roles play out actually in the bedroom in terms of who's dominant and things like that. So were there any scenes particularly difficult to do, and what did you kind of want to demonstrate by those scenes?
It's funny because those scenes actually weren't difficult to do. I think that we had a really incredible intimacy coordinator on the film, Abby, who sort of really helped us a lot. In general, I really enjoy doing those scenes because I feel like they are a kind of dance in a way, and hopefully like they've come off as very like raw, but they're very sort of thought out, and you know, yeah, we've kind of really thought about them, every single movement, and you know, the way the characters are looking, and you know, the way they're sort of angling themselves, and you know, what they're doing with their face. I think they're really fun because I think it's like sort of, yeah, like I said, creating some kind of dance, and the actors seem to really enjoy it as well. So those actually weren't the hardest things, funnily enough. They were really fun, I hope, yeah, unless I'm missing something, but yeah.
And, you know, I guess in terms of what people will take away from watching the film, I think we've already hit upon a few of the kind of themes, you know, how in all of us, we all have different sides of ourselves. We all have some more things we associate with masculinity, more with femininity. Are we fully allowed to express ourselves? Maybe the societal pressures that mean we're not, or sometimes it comes from within us, you know, and with Travis's character, how much is that him self-policing, how he feels about that side of himself? So what do you think some of the themes are and what people might take away?
I mean, you just said it so well then. So I think that's exactly it. Yeah, I mean, it's just as you said, it's like, it's thinking about like the friction between what society is saying and how we take that on, and then how we use that, like you're saying, to police ourselves, I think is really interesting. I think oftentimes we're kind of always grappling with opposite things. And then there's also the kind of theme of belonging, kind of wanting to be, you know, a member of the tribe at the same time wanting to be an individual. And I guess like that kind of sums up the Travis character in a way. He's, you know, he being sort of part of something is important to him, you know, kind of family and society, you know, and people do, it's sort of dishonest to say that we don't care about what we think. We do have these like social rules in place. But it's about like what things can we take and what things can we just, you know, throw away, and how do we do that? And I don't know if like the film like necessarily provides the answers. That's not the aim, but I hope that, you know, it gets people thinking about it a little bit and talking about it.
And just very quickly, what does it mean to you to have this film showing as part of London Film Festival? And do you already know what you might work on next?
So yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing to be part of the London Film Festival. BFI have been so like instrumental in my career so far, and they've been working with me and my producer Georgia Goggin for so long, and they really supported the film from the beginning. And so for me, it feels like this really beautiful thing to be able to premiere it here, but also because the film is very much a London film, and also like just everyone I know is in London. So for me, it couldn't be a better place to show the film for the first time, and I'm really, really excited. And what was the next bit?
Just if you already know what you're going to work on next film, or you still?
Yeah, so we're developing our second feature with BBC at the moment, and I don't know if I should say too much about it, but yeah, it's not set in the UK, so that's what I'll give you. But yeah, thematically, there might be some similar things as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. Can't wait for everyone else to see Pretty Red Dress, and really enjoyed presenting it here in London for the film festival. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to chat to you. Thanks. Cheers.